NFL draft wrapped up on Saturday. You ever, if you watched a lot of the draft coverage, and I did, because like I said, I'm a draft nerd. Draft, LSU baseball, it soaked up most of my weekend. You ever notice how much the cliches on the NFL draft are just like on what used to be National Signing Day? We filled all our needs. We got all the players we targeted. The guys fit our scheme I'm sorry. In college, they say the guys fit our scheme. In the NFL, they say they fit our culture. Okay, everybody runs the same stuff in the NFL. Those are for all of the guys that they got. In the NFL, you have to add one. It's we couldn't believe fill in the blank was still available at fill in the blank. Getting the press guy. What did you like about fill in the blank? Fill in the blank was the highest rated player on our board. Just once I'd like to be in one of these things and say, hey, coach, when did y'all not take the highest rated guy on the board? Just once I'd like to say, we had this guy. We think he's way better, but we're going to take the guy that's not as good as him. Oh, but it filled the need. I know. We took the best player available. Sound strategy. What I miss about the NFL draft is they never talk about the guys that they didn't get publicly. Privately, we get all of this stuff on National Signing Day when you don't get the guy. They'll always say, well, it's not the guys that you don't get. It's the ones that you get that can't play that hurt you. No, it's the ones that you don't get sometimes. When the All-American guy is playing for the other team and that, is from out of your state, when Travis Minor's playing for Florida State and, they make the national championship game, those things hurt. We never offered that player. We didn't want him. This is code for he never considered us. And then the one we had to retire on National Signing Day. I'm really going to miss this one in the era of NIL. The other school bought him. They just bought him. They're still buying him, but now it's legal. So those are some of the things we got from the draft. If you watched the Saints draft grades from all of the experts, you probably weren't blown away. Most of the grades were kind of in the middle towards the bottom. I think Kuiper had them second or third to last. There's reasons for that. It means that the Saints board didn't match the experts board. When the experts give you the draft nicks and all that, when they give you draft grades, they are grading off of their board. Well, they didn't get great value. They didn't get great value off of your board. They got great draft value off of their board. And sometimes they're right, and sometimes the experts are right. There were no big names for the Saints in this draft. There was no big move up the draft board or no big trade that that came down the pike in the first. No trades at all, actually, that came down in the first 2 days. And then there were no guys that the Saints took on the first 2 days of the draft that you would say really dropped. Those are the things that give you the big draft. Like Philadelphia is getting all kinds of love for getting Jalen Carter at 9 because a lot of the experts had him at number 1. We understand why he dropped. So he got great value. And I think and with Nolan Smith later in the day. So Philadelphia's got a big grade. There's nobody on the Saints board that really fit that. Brian Brzee was supposed to be drafted about where he was drafted. And I told you on Friday, I like him. I think there's some upside there. He's a big physical player. I think there's the potential that he could become an above average pass rusher. His personal story is compelling. So he's obviously overcome a lot off the field. I'm nervous about the fact that he was somewhat injury prone at one point in his Clemson career, but the player looks like a very productive player at a position that they needed. Isaiah Foskey was from Notre Dame, who they took in the second round, was a player that we did not talk at all about, and sometimes that happened. And all I saw all weekend from the draft nicks guys was, this is kind of a reach. We didn't have him rated this high. And I have to ask why. Isaiah Foskey was a very high production player at Notre Dame. His last 2 seasons, 12 and a half tackles for loss and 11 sacks in 2021 and 6 forced fumbles. This is for an up front guy. 2022, 14 tackles for losses and 11 sacks. He also had 4 career block punts. He's 6'5". He's 265 pounds, so he's not undersized. He's a 4.58 guy in the 40, so he's not slow. He's got long arms, and here's a first. Hadn't been injured. Plays all the time. I'm very big on that these days. Guys that actually play, I'm very, very big on that. I know there's some knocks on him about, how he comes from out wide and he can sometimes lose containment, and he's probably not the best run stuffer that you've ever seen on the edge. You're setting the edge, but this is a guy that can get after the passer, high production guy. There's not a lot that I don't like about what I've seen from him. They have been trying to draft a pass rusher for 3 years now. No, 4 years. They gave up the farm for Davenport. He couldn't stay on the field. They used a first-round pick on Peyton Turner. He couldn't stay on the field. This guy stays on the field. Let's hope that continues. Kendre Miller from TCU. Now, here I get why this back dropped into the 3rd round. He was a big production guy at TCU. Over 2,000 yards rushing his last 2 years, 24 touchdowns over that time span. He is the right size. He's 5'11". He's 215 pounds. He's durable. He missed the national championship game, but that's the only game that he missed last year. The year before that, he played in 10 games. He's just not explosive. You watch him run, and there's nothing wrong with his frontline speed. He's okay, but he's no burner, and he just doesn't explode through the hole. And he hardly caught the ball at all. If Sean Payton were still a coach of the Saints, I don't think they would have drafted this guy because he's just not involved in the passing game. He caught 16 balls in 14 games last year. But the offense is evolving. This is not Sean Payton's offense anymore. And he doesn't have to catch a ton of balls to still be a productive player for the Saints. But that's why he dropped to where he is. Nick Saldiveri from Old Dominion, 6'6", 318 pounds, 36 career starts. All of these guys that the Saints drafted were highly, highly productive guys in college. They didn't take players that have a lot of upside but didn't play a lot of football in college. Like, this guy only like the Saints would have never taken Anthony Richardson. If the Saints had the first pick in the draft and they had the 10th pick in the draft and he'd still been there, they would have never taken Anthony Richardson. That's just not how this group sees the draft. They want guys that put up a lot of numbers, played a lot of football in college, and I got no problem with that philosophy. Saldiveri, very athletic guy, played mostly tackle, but is probably going to move inside to guard. He's not a mauler, but he's got pretty good feet. He does strike me as having some Andrus Peat characteristics. He is, primarily a tackle in college, but not quite athletic enough to play out there full-time in the pros. Probably will slide down and play some guard, probably play in Pete's spot in 2024, and then he can fill in a tackle in a pinch. That's what Pete has been for most of his career. Scouts didn't love his hands. Didn't think he, sometimes he could miss in pass protection. That problem is mitigated a little bit when you slide him inside the guard. I think not only is he going to make the team, I think he's probably going to play a little bit next year. The Saints are notorious for having offensive line injuries, so I suspect that he will fill a very necessary spot in the 2 deeps. Jake Haener might have been my favorite pick, the quarterback from Fresno State. 6 foot. I saw him listed everywhere from 5'10" 3/4 to 6'1" over the weekend, depending on what service you looked at. I'm just going to call him 6 foot, 210 pounds. He was the MVP at the Senior Bowl. So our guys down there absolutely loved him. He was a team captain. They love the way he gets the ball out quick. He processes information. He, goes through his progressions. He's 24 years old. A lot of people thought he would come out last year because of his age. Came back for another year at Fresno State. 24 years old. Highly productive guy. 3-year starter there. 53 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. So all that's good. He's smaller, obviously. He's not a huge guy. Has an adequate arm, but by no means a big-time NFL arm. Let me caution you on this because it just drives me crazy, all right? He's 6 foot tall. He's 210 pounds. He wears number 9. He's very accurate. He gets the ball out quickly. He is not Drew Brees. He is not Drew Brees on his best day. He is not going to become Drew Brees. He is not going to throw for 80,000 yards in the NFL. He may be a starting quarterback one day. He may be a very good starting quarterback one day. He is not Drew Brees. How do you know he's not going to become Drew Brees? Because I know. Yes, I'm just that good. He's not going to be Drew Brees. First thing is, he's not as athletic as Brees. For Brees' size, Brees was an exceptional athlete. He was a champion junior tennis player. He could dunk a basketball. Okay, yeah. Every year the Saints would go play softball at Zephyr Field for that charity, and Brees would hit ball after ball out of the park. Okay, this guy's not a great athlete. Okay, very good football player, but he is nowhere near the athlete that Drew Brees was. Okay, 6-foot white guy. He's not a good athlete. Brees was. Okay, Haener's not. All 6-foot white point guards are not John Stockton. Okay, there's a difference. If Haener becomes a starter, I'll be over the moon. Think more like Brock Purdy, okay? It's a little bit smaller than Purdy, but not much. Purdy and Haener have a lot. Purdy's not a great athlete either, okay? But he was very good at processing information. He's very good at getting the ball out. He had enough arm. He doesn't have the monster arm. He just knows how to play the position. So think Brock Purdy. In the 4th round, this guy's perfect. If it works out, you know, this is your lottery ticket, okay? This guy works out, it's fantastic. He becomes the next Brock Purdy. He's, ends up having to start games somewhere down the line for you. I don't care that he's 24 years old. I actually like that he's 24 years old. Maybe in 3 years he'll be the starter. Well, then you got to re-sign him again. Yeah, but then you don't have to go trade up in the draft and give away 8 first-round draft choices. You don't have to go, pluck over what's left in free agency. So Haener is a very nice player to go in there with to say, this is our 3rd quarterback. Next year, he might be our 2nd quarterback. 3 years from now, he might be our 1st quarterback. And if he's not, it was a 4th-round pick. Love the pick of Haener. Jordan Howden, safety from Minnesota, played a lot of football in college at 49 career starts. Just not a ton of production. This is why he dropped as far as he did. Yeah, he'll come up and hit you in the run game, but in coverage, he lacks good ball skills. For 49 career starts, I think you were talking about 10 pass breakups and 3 or 4 interceptions over the last 2 years. So maybe a special teams guy. I don't think he's a lock to make the team. A.T. Perry from Wake Forest, very easy. This is a high-risk, high-reward pick. Very productive at the college level. Caught 150 balls for 2,300-plus yards over his last 2 seasons. 26 touchdowns. That's a lot for Wake Forest. I mean, that's a lot of catches. It's a lot of yards. It's a lot of touchdowns. And he's 6'3". He's 200 pounds, and he's a 4'4" guy. Why the hell is this guy in the 6th round? He caught that many touchdown passes. He's big. He's not too skinny. He runs real fast. He played in a Power 5 conference. What's he doing in the 6th round? He drops a lot of balls. A lot of balls. So if they can fix that, is that a fixable thing? If they can fix that, then you've really got something. So a good guy to take a flyer on. All in all, not a sexy draft for the Saints, but one that I liked. It's unusual. Usually the experts like the Saints draft, and I'm like, man, I didn't like this pick. They reached on this guy to get. They took a lot of guys that did a lot of good things in college. They just took a lot of good football players. Not sexy, not flashy. Solid, though, I think. Very solid.